Now, from the studios of Into Tomorrow in Miami, this is ITTV.
Our next guest has written a book that highlights 6 key expansion theories. We'll find out what that means, that are critical to building a more sustainable future. He's the CEO of Danish Design Center and co-author of Expand, Stretching the Future by Design. Christian Bason. Christian, joining us from Denmark. Welcome Into Tomorrow. How are you, sir?
Thank you very much. Good to be on this show and just flashing the book hot from the press. So thanks for the mention.
Oh, by all means. And those listening on the radio yet to see the video of this interview, visit us at intotomorrow.com and you'll see Christian and the book all about expanding the future. Tell me about the whole concept about expand and stretching the future by design. What's the idea there?
Right. So the big idea is that we've gotten very, very good at designing technology that we love as consumers. So we have worked with what we call a user-centered or human-centered design to create products people fall in love with, whether that is physical tech products, could be your phone, it could be your car for that matter. Or whether it's digital experiences, your streaming services, your apps, and so forth. And that's all been amazing. And I've grown up with the microcomputer. I've grown up with the technology that's really been shaping our world. But we've come to a place in, human history where we are reaching kind of the boundaries that our planet can cope with in terms of climate change and environmental change. We've also reached a point where we're beginning to ask ourselves whether all technology is good for us. What about addiction to our streaming services? There are increasing mental health problems for young people dealing with social media. And we've also seen technology being used sometimes, for not so good purposes.
Yeah, and I'm sure when you mention addiction, addiction to our devices, even themselves, whether it's for anti-social media or otherwise, it's like got to have my phone within arm's reach at all times.
True. Look at you, my 15-year-old daughter, and it's almost on the extension of her hand,
Yeah.
And, when you look at the streaming services, I'm an avid watcher myself, but the biggest enemy for the streaming services is your night's sleep, and that's what they're attacking now is get another round of binging on the next episode. And so I understand where it's coming from. It's coming from, of course, you want to sell good products and services, and they're really good at it.
I think they're probably too good at it, especially as I always refer to them, the anti-social media, because it's part of that addiction. It's part of the fix we all need, whether it's I'm hoping for more likes or more followers or more friends or whatever, or just because I want to see what else is going on, with my friends and family. We're all afraid we're going to miss something, right?
Yeah, we have a bit of FOMO. We're afraid of missing out. And so the notion we're coming with in the book, and the book is really about how do we need to start thinking differently to change the world maybe in a better direction or in the direction that we want. And we're suggesting that just because we have a iPhone number 11 or 12 or 13, does that mean we'll have iPhone number 20 a few years down the line? Or if we're binging for 5 hours on average on streaming services, will we then be watching 7 hours in the future? Is that where we want to go? So we are actually asking a bit about, let's stop for a while and take a look at how we design things. What kind of consumption do we want? How do we do it in ways that are good for people and good for the planet? And to do that, and by the way, also good for profits. We still, of course, want to make money. We want to have good jobs and we want to have growing companies. So we're saying we have 6 ideas, 6 big ideas about how to expand our thinking. And that can be applied in business, it can be applied in tech engineering, but it could also be, I think, applied in our own lives, in the way we think about how we consume things and how we live our lives.
Well, and of course, unfortunately, I don't have a copy of the book, but I'm looking on your website, and I'm wondering if you feel that tech is helping our planet to be more sustainable or just in general, or is it not? Is it hurting our planet?
Well, again, when you come from the field of design and you look at the state of affairs in terms of climate change and environment and so on, you can't help but think that we did this to ourselves. We created this culture and the consumptions that led us to where we are. And so on the one side, you can be a bit pessimistic and you can say that, well, tech and great design got us into the mess. But if it got us here, it could also get us out of the mess. And so as the problems we're facing as a humanity and as a planet are changing, we need to change our approaches to the problem and use the power of technology, the power of great design to shape and make a more sustainable future, but also a future that's still attractive, like a future we want to live in, a future that's also fun and beautiful and exciting. So that's kind of where we are coming from. We're coming from, let's call it guarded optimism around what we can do to shape a better future.
Well, that's terrific. And Christian, I'm wondering then, what are a couple at least of the 6 points that you refer to, and give us an idea as to how you address those.
Right. So the first one, which is almost like an obvious one, if you think about it, is time. And when we think about the products that surround us, many of them are designed to not last very long. And they're also designed to not be able to, you can't really repair them or fix them. As an example, I have a very nice German-made dishwashing machine. I've had it for about 10 years. About 20 years ago, a machine like that would last for at least 12 or 14 and would be designed for that. Today, it's designed to last about 8 years. And my technician is telling me that I need to replace it. But actually, all that's wrong with it is that there's a bit of rust and a little bit of leakage. To fix the leakage and the rust inside the machine, it's the same price as a new machine.
Yeah.
And so instead of replacing the tray, which is just a piece of metal, I ought to actually go down and buy a new one and throw this one out. Now, I'm kind of struggling on that one, and I'm trying to find ways to keep it for a while running. But we've made a whole world of products that you just buy, purchase, use, and then discard again. And we need to start thinking about how can we recycle them? How can we make them easier to repair? How can we make replacement parts that don't cost $500 like this metal tray will cost me to put back without rust? So that's just a small example from our everyday lives, but it's an example of how we've, in a way, designed technology and products for redundance rather than for longevity. And so the point about time, let's think of longer time frames. Let's think about 20 years or 30 years and think about how can we create something that's really, really long lasting. And that goes for products and goes for even for business strategies as well.
And the interesting thing is, I'm sure there in Copenhagen where you are, we have the same problems as we do here in the U.S. in terms of built-in obsolescence as well. You talk about how good, well-built products typically used to be designed to last longer than they do now. But part of it is because of technology, where you also want new features. I replaced my dishwasher, ironically, recently, and it's because now I've got the latest tech. I mean, it texts me when it's finished with a cycle. I can start it via my Alexa. I can do, I mean, not that you do all the time. You push the buttons and get it going, but it does do a much better job at being quiet and cleaning. And I mean, okay, I'm happy that I did replace it. I had to as well, some leaking, whatever, but maybe not so much built-in obsolescence as it was, now's a chance to get the latest tech as well. And after all, that's what we cover. So yeah, of course I went with the tech.
True, and I can see the attraction, and I'm getting a little bit envious here. Maybe I should replace it to get the texting thing and so on. But let me give you a kind of cool example of how you can think differently about this. So there's this high-end hi-fi company called Bang & Olufsen.
Sure, very familiar with them. Yeah,
it's a Danish-based global brand, right? You know them, and it's beautiful, right? It's well designed, beautifully designed, also pretty expensive, but it's also timeless, which means that a Bang & Olufsen hi-fi speaker from the 1970s or 80s still looks beautiful and cool if it's well maintained, but of course it's not Wi-Fi enabled. Now and it doesn't have Bluetooth, right? It doesn't have built-in amplifier. It doesn't have any of those things. You can run it with your phone. Yeah. But what Bang & Olufsen did a few years back, and actually I was at South by Southwest with them for this product launch, which was to build something they called B&O Create, which was basically a circuit board, more or less based on a Raspberry Pi piece of hardware, where if you just screw that on the back of your old speakers, it would get amplification, Bluetooth, and Wi-Fi, and suddenly you could keep your speakers running for the next decade with the latest, connecting it to your phone. Wow. So it's just an example of what we also would call open source hardware, but where you think about how could we actually, with a few twists, make this product live much, much longer and still create joy and value and for the consumer, especially when you build high quality from the start.
Yeah, and
so that's just an example.
In that case, I was going to say kudos to Bang & Olufsen for being able to do something like that because, yeah, these speakers are fine. There's no reason to replace them except for the tech. Well, let's add the tech to the existing speakers. Not only does that make sense, but it also hopefully can save us all money. We can continue to enjoy, whether it's speakers or any other product that we are truly enjoying and not replacing. But somehow, and you can't do that with everything, good luck trying to do that with a dishwasher, for example, but you certainly can do that with many items that we're familiar with, that we love, including our cars. You might have an older car, but you can add Bluetooth technology. You can do certain things that you might not have been able to do. Yep. Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and you can do things to upgrade a vehicle. I think we need to, all of us, think more about upgrading rather than always just replacing. If it makes sense, of course, replace. But sometimes upgrading makes even more sense.
Sure, and of course the benefit is not only to keep your things you love in your life, but also it's better for the planet because if we otherwise often we'll just throw this in the trash bin and it'll end up in a landfill or end up in being burned in a plant, and then we get CO2 or carbon challenges and climate change. So it's also about thinking smart ways where we can live a cool life with the tech and the products we love, but also care more for the environment, care more for the planet, and it basically get a win-win.
And of course, one of the things you talk about in your book, Expand, Stretching the Future by Design, you discuss the difference between self-serving technologies and society-serving technologies. Is that an example of that?
I think definitely it's an example in the sense that we're saying, how do we go beyond what's just great for consumption and think broader, right? So expanding our thinking about what are we designing for. We have some points in the book that, we design for people, we create technology for people, but how do we do it at the same time? We take care of other species that are kind of living on this planet, and think about that for a moment. And so expanding our thinking doesn't mean that we don't create great products and services anymore, but it means that we take a bigger perspective and we take more factors into consideration as we design them.
Sure.
And that's what the world calls for, which means that if you're a company, if you're a designer, think about what's not just good for sales. We want to sell, sure, but what's also good for society and good for the planet.
Wow, love it. Well, Christian, you're a delight to talk with. If you don't mind, I'm sure you don't mind, hold your book up again so we can see it. He is the co-author of this book that you can see, Expand, Stretching the Future by Design. He's also the CEO of Danish design center, Christian Bason. Thanks so much for joining us here on Into Tomorrow. We look forward to chatting with you again at some point, and keep up the good work and keep our minds thinking about better ways to do things, whether it's saving the planet, saving us money, whatever. Any number of things can be very positive. Thanks again for joining us.
Thanks, Dave. Pleasure. May your thinking keep expanding.
Yeah. Oh, I like what you did there. Very good. It's like having you guests on to bring us further into tomorrow, and you've done just that. Again, the co-author of Expand, Stretching the Future by Design. His website, cleverly enough, expandingthefuture.com. We'll get you there too when you visit us at intotomorrow.com. Stay tuned. There's much more to come here on Into Tomorrow. I'm Dave Graveline. It all happens right here on the Advanced Media Network.